Hello, everyone. I am Dion Cook from Avixa, and welcome to Everyone Hates Remote Presentations. Let's fix them. It's presented by Utukuri, and this webinar is brought to you by today's sponsor, Vizetto. Before I hand the presentation over to there are a couple of housekeeping items that I must address first. For the CTS holders among you viewing our presentation live, today's webinar qualifies for a half renewal unit for the CTS and for the CTSD, but none for the CTSI. Please allow up to 7 business days for those to appear on your transcripts. If you have any issues, please direct those to my team directly at webinars@avixa.org. Today's webinar should last between 45 and 60 minutes, and all attendees have been placed on mute. If you have questions during our presentation, please enter them into the Q&A window so Av can address them at his discretion, either towards the end of the presentation or in the middle. To access the Q&A window, move your cursor towards the live stream video box, locate the Q&A icon, and type away. Just please be mindful that there is a separate menu for the chat and to not put your questions there. You will have access to this recorded webinar at avixa.org/webinars within about 5 to 7 business days. That's all from Avixa for now, and on to our presentation. Take it away, Av.
Hi. Thanks, everyone, for joining today. Let me share my screen and get started. Is this all coming through? Standard remote meeting question.
Yes, sir.
Okay. My name is Utukuri. Thanks for joining today. And just to give you a little bit of my background, why am I giving you this presentation? Well, I'm an engineer and product developer. So I'm a hands-on individual that creates technology, deploys for the last 30 years, everything from video games to avionics and aircraft cockpits, electrical, computer engineering. And I've been involved in this industry for over 20 years. I have about 80 different patents, me and my team, on touchscreens. We've done video walls. We've done interactive software for experiences all over the place, all the way through to video games. And started a company called Banto ShadowSense, innovated a new type of touchscreen technology, and done just hundreds of different installs. So that's kind of my background. And this is something that has been core passion for me because I have had a lot of challenges with remote presentations, and I wanted to go ahead and solve them. So one of our objectives today is I basically put in psychological triggers that go ahead and boost attention. There's lots of tricks you can use. Improves your delivery using cameras, a lot of things that people just do wrong. And I'm going to give you all sorts of tips on looking for hardware, what's the best combination. And if you're designing boardrooms, what type of things to look for from a future-proofing of solutions. So first up, I think remote presentations suck. If you are happy to be in a 7-8 hour long remote training seminar and you love it, you're in the wrong seminar. You're in the wrong webinar. You'd have to tell me how to go do that. But I find that a lot of times in remote presentations, it's a good time to catch up on my video games here. By the way, anytime someone asks a question, somebody goes off mute and they say, sorry, your mic cut off. Can you repeat that again? You know that wasn't a mic problem. It was they're not paying attention. But it's not their fault, though, okay? And I'm going to go ahead and tell you how to fix that. So most remote presentations, this is the challenge that you have. We feel very disconnected, and audiences are incredibly distant. They are not connecting to the individual. How do we solve that? So that's been the area of my research for almost 5 years now. And I'm now going to transform that remote meeting into a real live experience. I want you to feel like you're in the room with me. And this is a technology that, and a whole bunch of pieces that I put together that creates this remote meeting experience. Dion, is this coming through okay now?
Yep, you are good to go, my friend.
Awesome. Is everybody else able to see this smoothly? I just want to make sure your video quality is good. If you guys can put a thumbs up in chat. There we go. So now, my first question is, where's everyone from? Okay, I see Texas. I see New York. I saw Atlanta and Miami come up. Anybody international? I see Brazil in the house today. Where is everybody else coming in from? Oh, Canada. Yes. I'm actually calling in from Toronto today. So it's actually not snowing. So I'm really happy. Dubai. Great to meet you guys. Had a great time in Dubai just about a couple of months ago. Trinidad, California, awesome. Arizona here. So we got a great worldwide audience. And, towards the end, I'm going to ask you how this remote meeting fared compared to some other things. So number one, first poll, Dion, if you can put it up. How many hours of remote meetings in a week? Let's go see what everybody's saying. There we go. Wow, 20 plus hours. 7 people. Okay, I'd love to hear about your mental sanity there. A lot of people. Okay, 50 people, 0 to 5. You're very lucky. But it looks like a huge percentage of people are in 5 to 10, 10 to 15, 15 to 20 hours. Man, that's a lot of remote meetings. I'm staring at your screen. Look, I love remote meetings. I love the flexibility, but there's a lot of things I wish I could improve. Okay, so what if we can have the best of both worlds? Now, first up, I know I am exhausted after a 4 or 5 hour day of remote meetings, and I'm assuming lots of other people are as well. I find them to be draining, and there's a lot of research for this. So, did you know that screens are inherently distracting? So, here's a thought experiment. You're reading a book like a real novel. Remember those things made of paper? Versus an e-reader. Did you know that your brain activates way differently when you're reading a real book versus an e-reader? So screens are inherently distracting. Our brain processes screens, whether it be blue light, whether it be the flatness, whether it be the lack of texture, but reading a book, you actually will retain more information than reading an actual e-reader. Just like you're listening to a podcast, but you attended that event live. I mean, there's just a significant difference. So it really is a huge problem because we're now living in a screen world and we all want to be more productive, maybe more efficient and contribute more. And that's kind of one of the challenges that we have. So there's actually, believe it or not, I learned from a neurologist friend of mine. There's something called the cocktail party effect. So you know how you go to a cocktail party, you go to an Avixa, Infocom, you name a trade show, we're all talking. You thought you met some great relationships, but what percentage of them actually you remember? How many times do they remember you? I'm not saying that you're going to get 0 out of 100, but the ratio, I'm sure you'll all agree, is very small. Okay, so what actually happens if the cocktail party effect is our brain's not going deep. It's not really diving into what makes sense and what creates long-term memories. So we reduce the number of items that we remember. It becomes superficial. It becomes difficult for us to keep track of all of that. And a lot of times that's why I go to trade shows and I give out cards and very few people actually call me back, right? And that's actually a challenge and that's a real thing. It's not just you. Now, there's another study. I thought this was fascinating. And they talked about learning variance in technology. Okay, so 1.0 is perfect learning environment. You got everything that you wanted out. 0 is horrible. So in this particular study, email, chat, and passive video conferences were negative 0.02. So people could actually come out of a remote meeting with less information than they went in. Isn't that nuts? Like, why are we having remote meetings then? Compared to a shared experience, just to give you this variance, shared experience, we're all going to go to dinner together. We're all going to go diving, or we went hiking in Arizona for a team building exercise. You'll get a lot more out of it. Nobody can deny that. So that's why a team building exercise in remote meetings doesn't make any sense, especially if people are turning their mics off, turning off their cameras. It's an incredibly difficult way to go ahead and connect. So how do we fix that as part of this particular webinar? So our second poll, how engaged are you in a remote meeting? Dion, if you can put that up. So I'd love to see where everybody feels they are. Yeah, there we go. That's exactly where the research shows, right? Coming in, most people are not very engaged. Very engaged to me is we went to dinner together and we had a one-on-one session. We had a shared experience compared to, hey, mildly engaged and engaged. You might think you're engaged, but you're actually going to have a lot of difficulties remembering information. Your brain is all or nothing. It doesn't just automatically create memories, and I'm going to go talk about that. So that's an exact example. How do we take all these engaged and mildly engaged to be very engaged? What if 10 to 15% of your remote sales calls, remote project plan meetings, remote anything actually raise the bar by 20%? what does that do to your business? What does that do to your work environment, your culture? It's actually quite profound. So coming into that, I actually want to talk about a couple of questions, if you can put this up. What's your biggest remote presentation pain? What do you hate about them? Can you guys put that up into chat? Because I'm actually looking at chat. No cameras? Absolutely. I hate it when people turn all of their cameras off. I'll never remember what they said, their faces. Anybody else? Reading the slide verbatim. Absolutely. And I talk about that in a second. Slides, poor audio quality. Yeah. Audio, we've got people walking up, questions, no engagement. Absolutely. As a presenter, engagement. There you go. As a presenter, this is the biggest thing for me. Look, I put a lot of effort into something. I made this be an important part of my day. I'm wanting to go ahead and connect with you. And if that engagement is not there, it's deflating for me. Unprepared presenter is absolutely. Can everybody see my screen? Yeah, and can you hear me? Unfortunately for today, there's no other feedback mechanism. And I had to start this webinar with also the exact same comment. Low interactivity, not seeing the presenter. Actually, that's a huge percentage of the problem. See, what actually happens in a normal remote meeting is I'm a little box at the top of the screen and you cannot see me at all. You cannot interact with me. So what I want to do is show you techniques as to how you transform that meeting so the presenter is front and center. Actually, those are all great topics you've already hit on. And I'm now going to jump a little bit into the neuroscience as to how your brain works so that you have a little bit more psychological explanations of what's actually going on. Okay, so your brain in a meeting. Let's actually talk about how you pay attention. So first up, you've all heard of something called the prefrontal cortex, and that's, for all intents and purposes, that's your CEO of the brain. If the prefrontal cortex decides that this is an important meeting, you're halfway there. So what actually happens is the prefrontal cortex is making the high-level decision, and if it decides, hey, I don't need this, I don't want this, I already know this. So there's a lot of bias that actually comes in, and we're going to talk about that in a second. So what that does is it goes into the anterior cingulate cortex, which is the ACC. I call it the operator. So the operator is basically now connecting your brain and bringing the resources to the table. Hey, look, this is an important meeting. Let's go pay attention. The operator is now going to go. Let's actually see if the amygdala is going to create an emotional response. Are you connecting with the speaker? Does this actually make sense to us? The hippocampus is your storage. So if you don't have an emotional response and you're not storing information, that classic story where if the tree falls and no one heard it, did it make a sound, right? If a meeting actually happened and no one remembers it, did it actually happen, right? So it's an important question. So what actually happens a lot of times is we go through meetings like zombies because this doesn't activate, this doesn't bring any relevant operators or resources to the table. Think about our business sense. There's no emotional response and there's no storage and there's no follow-up. So did that meeting really happen? You really have to get the motivation, dopamine. I'm sure you've heard of this before. And norepinephrine, alertness. You've got to bring this to the table. There's a lot of neurotransmitters that you've heard of, and all of them play a part in getting you up there. So one of the most important things is how many people have heard a picture is worth 1,000 words. We've all heard this. Actually, that's wrong. A picture is worth 60,000 words. You're processing images 60,000 times faster than text. Like, think about that. That's a phenomenal amount of information you can actually grab. And a lot of times when people are talking about images, they're not talking about actual data, right? So in this room right now, you might be seeing my background. You might be seeing some interesting thing that I'm doing with the touchscreen. Like you're getting my logo. There's branding involved. All sorts of things are subconsciously being absorbed in order to create this speed of processing, right? So what a lot of times the visual cortex is doing is not just picking up data, it's picking up all the additional details that go into this. Did you connect with the speaker? What were they wearing subconsciously? Somebody was wearing a Hawaiian shirt, and I'm going to get into all that. Now, 80% of what we see, we tend to remember more. So somebody came back and said, the cameras were shut off. I was staring blankly at a slide. And what you're doing is you're literally watching paint dry. People give no visual attraction for you to go ahead and engage. And what happens is there's no emotional impact. And when you're not actually committed or bought into a meeting or a presentation, you're actually not going to create that long-term memory. So just fun fact, out of your entire brain's cortex that processes sensory information, 50% of the brain is visual processing. And I'm spending a little bit of time on this slide because whatever you do in any meeting, unfortunately, marketing always thinks a pretty slide is going to sell the deal. A pretty slide is all that matters. And you know what? A pretty slide is not that as important as the whole experience. Of course, how does audio impact that memory experience? Is it similar to, so what you can see here is 20% of what we read and 10% of what we hear. Now, of course, in this meeting, if you're not hearing me and you're seeing my lips move, that's not going to help you. But you reading something while I'm saying something, and I'm going to talk about all of this in just a bit. That's why a deck is not important. You shouldn't read it verbatim. It's a visual aid. So that's a great question. Audio, video, the visual, everything actually has to come together in a manner that promotes that emotional impact, creates better memory. Now, the other big thing is pattern recognition. Yeah, audio is definitely the worst, according to memory and neurological studies, right? Of course, as I said, if I mute myself and went through the whole hour, it's not going to help you. So take it in the context as to learning. So pattern recognition is also really important. I hate to say it, marketing sometimes is right. That's why brands and emblems are really important because we recognize patterns. It's all visual. So when they're talking about the blue is wrong on my logo, and all of us IT people are like, come on, it's close enough. There might be some truth to that, I have to admit, right? So there's definitely some involvement there. Now, coming in, this is how a meeting becomes important. It's something called executive function. Okay, now I've simplified it. There's a lot of research around it. In order to first actually find that a meeting is important, you have to activate. Your brain actually, that's your prefrontal cortex. I'm activating, and I think this is important. Then you actually have to apply focus. Now, when you apply focus, it actually has to be intentional effort. Like you actually have to try. It's not going to be that easy because if you passively absorb something, perfect example, you know how many times you're watching a video on YouTube, you're passive, and then you go, damn, what happened for the last 5 minutes? I completely blanked out. You go back, and then you're watching again. You go back. It happens to me all the time, especially if I'm bored in a movie, right? What the hell happened? And my wife will go, aren't you paying attention? He just told you what he's doing. Like, well, then I'm not paying attention. Then you have to trigger an emotion. And an emotion will actually trigger the memory. Just letting you know that. Memories are highly linked to emotions. So, and we'll explain that in a bit. And then you get to an action. So if you're an IT professional setting up a meeting, you have a webinar, you're a consultant, it's really important for you to get people to pay attention, to buy your products. Just understand, just a pretty deck and a low price or what you think the customer wants, there's a lot of psychological barriers. You have to convince them to activate, focus, put effort and emotion. It generates memories, and then finally you get to an action. So how do you simplify all that? What's the tricks? We're going to talk about that next. But first, Dion, I'm hoping that you can turn your camera on and help me out a little bit here.
Sir.
Okay, so I'm going to do something called a Stroop test because I can't see anybody else. I'm going to put Dion on the hot seat right here. Now, what I'm going to do is I don't want you to read blue, green, yellow. I want you to read the color of the words and do it as fast as you can.
The color of the word.
Yeah, so this is going to be red, okay? So how fast can you read it?
Red, green, blue, red, yellow, red.
Okay, is your brain hurting?
The gray and the green hurt my brain. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so everybody else try it.
Yellow.
Everybody else try it. This is such a simple test. It's called the Stroop test. Okay, is your brain hurting? Right? You have to think about this. Now, this comes back to what I talked about, effort, right? My brain is hurting. Okay, now watch this. You know how simple this was, right? what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to show you how the brain has a bias, right? It actually wants to assume certain things, and I'm trying to change that paradigm, and I'm actually asking you to read something else, like the context. Now, Dion, no, one more test hot seat here. Everybody else follow along. Now, Dion, I want you to read this as quickly as you can.
The phenomenal power of the human mind. According to a research at Cambridge University, it doesn't matter in what order the letters in a word are. The only important thing is that the first and the last letter be in the right place. The
I
rest
didn't say.
don't mess.
Watch this. I actually replaced letters with actual numbers and words and symbols. Can you read that?
This message serves to prove how our minds can do amazing things, impressive things. In the beginning, it was hard, but now, on this line, your mind is reading automatically without even thinking about it. Be proud.
Okay. Did your brain hurt there?
No,
Okay.
not like the other one.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? Like, isn't that really interesting that you come in and go, here's the actual colors, right? Absolutely. Now, what's happening right now is, Dion, I'm actually engaging your executive function. I put you on the spot. I asked you to read something out, and I changed something in a way that you did not understand. Now, what also is happening here is you're seeing, pictures worth that 60,000 words. Like your brain is processing a picture that's completely garbled and ungarbling it real time live and processing it without you putting any effort into it. Whereas in the Stroop test, I physically changed the context of something, so you needed to go trigger effort. So this is exactly coming down to what this executive function is. So there's lots of tests like this. This is how optical illusions work. All sorts of things work on how executive function is actually brought to the table, how your brain processes information. Why am I showing you all this? Because I want to tell you that there is something called cognitive bias. Okay. So now cognitive bias to neurologists and neuroscientists is very different. But for me, I care about a meeting. Hey, confirmation bias. I know this won't work for us. Oh yeah, change is risky. We have another tool. Let's not switch. I expected that price to be lower. Anybody have these type of objections going into meetings? Because if you never have an objection, then you know what? I'd like to learn from you as to how you sell, right? Look, everyone comes to a meeting with objections. They come with something called bias because they think they know the answer. They're scanning your deck. They're looking at your deck going, it's not going to work for me. They're looking at the fact that your product is actually better, but they're not putting the effort in. They're like, no, I saw that presentation last week. I already know what I want. So it's incredibly difficult for you to activate that brain, jump into executive function, and fix the cognitive bias. And that's why remote meetings fail, because when we're in person, we see people face to face, it's much easier to overcome these reasons. So I just wanted to give you a primer on neurological function to kind of understand, how remote meetings are not effective. And somebody else said engagement. Hey, I hate the fact that there's no engagement in remote meetings. Well, let's talk about what engagement is. I thought I knew what engagement was, but I actually didn't until I did a lot of research. So another poll. How many remote meetings do you remember from last week? Dion, if you can put that up. Oh, did I lose Dion? There we go. Okay. One meeting from Patrick, Mike, 2, 1, 2. Yeah, you can throw some numbers in there. One meeting. Wow. So again, if you 1.5, Priya, I'd like to see how you tabulated that. That's very specific and accurate. None of them, 14 people, some of them 91, 57. So about 66% of people are saying it's almost none or some. Okay. I was on vacation. Awesome. And do you remember your vacation, Chris? That's the important question. And do you remember it more than your remote meeting? Okay, there you go. He remembers it more than his remote meeting, I'm assuming, otherwise it would not be a vacation. So, okay, the reason is we're not actually activating. And here's the thing, if you only remember some of them or none of them, or did you get enough out of it? And I challenge you, even on most of them, probably it's a very difficult swing. You might remember certain things as cognitive bias. Now, somebody said they hate slides. Okay, is this your slide meetings? Of course, I'm making jokes of it. I'm going to read through 120 slides. We've all been there. Absolutely. And Wolf, I'm definitely gonna go talk about that. I do think that slides are a visual aid. And I don't know if the data is coming in on a screen share accurately based on your thing, but the intention is to actually have that balance. And slide hell is real. Most of us live through that. That's by PowerPoint. And what I wanted to do is there's something called reinforcement learning you can use on a slide. A slide is a visual aid, and what's reinforcement learning? Okay, what I've been doing today is, what did I do? I actually gave you polls, but more importantly, I actually wrote down information as to what you like and what you don't like. I gave it a visual feedback as to what's actually going on. Now, what that does is it activates your visual cortex. Now, reinforcement learning is the concept that when I write something, you read it, hear it, see it all at the same time. It's kind of like sensors are fusing together. And I'm also interacting. So not only am I presenting the content, you've got to be dynamic, observe agreement, and you've got to go activate and give reward. So for example, Wolf actually said, hey, I don't know about the presentation being balanced with the content. I can't read it. It's a valid point. So we're going to get to that in just a second. But the point being, reinforcement learning is very rarely used by most presenters. If you can actually pause, ask, cause effect, and go make a change. But here's where PowerPoint really suffers. What if someone asks a question that's not in your slide deck? What if someone asks for a piece of information that you're not prepared for? So most presenters just go, here's PowerPoint. It's designed to be linear in flow. I'm going to do what it's supposed to go do, and then let's throw this out of the window. See, this is not what happens when you're face-to-face. When I'm face-to-face, I'm actually running my conversation based on what you're having, what your questions are. There's an infinite feedback loop, right? It's going like this constantly. We're feeding back. And that does not happen in most remote meetings. So reinforcement learning is a very critical aspect of getting engagement up, because that means that the prefrontal cortex is going to go, this is important. I'm going to go pay more attention. There's a reward and cycle system. The second thing is called associative learning. If I said life is like a box of chocolates, how many, do I have to explain much? I'm assuming here everybody knows what that means. Not only that, you'll actually have a lot of memories associated with it, right? Maybe you went with your kids. Maybe that's a movie that you saw under a special occasion, or maybe it resonated with you. Bam, massive amounts of associative memories come up. So memories are not a single piece of information. It's not, memories are 3 to 4 to 5 pieces of information connected together. It's called connected neurons. So perfect example. Let's just say that 5 years ago, you had a meeting where you spilled hot coffee on yourself, or there's a squeaky chair and you were annoyed. You will remember that meeting. Would you agree? Versus a meeting that had no emotional response, right? Please remove the cursor. Did I have a cursor? Oh, are you talking about the fact that when I write, there's a cursor coming up, that little thing? Wolf? Curious. Okay, so I am curious about that. I'll get back to it. But we do have something called associative learning, where we associate multiple pieces of information together. And what you're going to do today is what you're going to do today is you're actually going to associate a whole bunch of information that I presented with me and possibly my brand, and it's going to hopefully, fingers crossed, create a longer term memory. So what I did was I used reinforcement learning and I used associative learning in order to reinforce that emotional impact that'll give you a longer memory shelf life. So grouping informations together. When information is tied to visuals, come back to that 60,000, the visual is a 60,000 words. It's 60,000 times faster. Association automatically creates stories. Now, how many times have you all heard, hey, go ahead and tell stories, don't present? Now, not a lot of us have difficulty. Not everything is a story. I'm selling you an HVAC machine. I have an MRI machine, or there's a proposal for new construction. I'm not going to start off and say, I had problems when my house was constructed. I know you're constructing an airport, but let me share you my story. So when I talk to a lot of the leadership and presentation coaches and they go bring a story in, I'm like, dude, like I'm selling garbage bins. Like I don't have a story, right? Like not everything is a story, but you can create stories. Your brain will actually fill in the gaps based on what's actually going on visually. Engage visual cortex. engaging visual cortex is really critical because remember, it's that 60,000 times. And what that means is I am drawing, there's motion. All of you can tell me if you agree or not, outside of the cursor maybe being distracting. If I actually circle something and underline something, did your eye immediately go there? Did you read the thing that I wanted you to read? And were you more engaged because of the fact that exactly now what's happening is most of the time your eye just wanders through the slide deck watching whatever you want, but I have to be as the presenter pointing that out. And you know who does a great job of this? Broadcasters. Broadcasters do a phenomenal job of taking complex information and drawing an arrow, drawing a circle, saying it's going to be 60 in Albany, and creating an amazing memory that could be technical, those low pressure and high pressure things that move and they're circling and they're saying, I don't know, a lot of that stuff doesn't mean anything to me, but somehow it's all makes sense, right? So that's kind of what you have to do. You got to engage the visual cortex. And there's something called contrast neurons. There's neurons in your visual cortex that pick up color, shapes. That's why symbols are really good. Business cards, a long time ago, a sales mentor, first job out of school, they said, if you hold a business card in front of your hand while you're speaking to someone, anytime you see that business card, the conversation will come back. You don't have to take notes. And you know what? Bam. To this day, I can go back to my desk. There's a stack of business cards like this. Most of them I can pick up. And if I had an engaging conversation, I'll remember exactly who they are. That's why when people come in and go, let me tap your phone at the trade show, at the end of the day, I got 600 taps. I have no clue who any of them are. I'm like, technology is great, but I wish you had a card with you because I hold it, I crinkle it, I fold it, I look at it, I feel the texture, I put it in my back pocket. When I pull it back out, bam, all that memory comes back. Okay, so these are the tricks that everyone knows, but technology is actually changing the game, and I'm trying to bring some of that back. So engage visual cortex. So I'm now going to talk about a little bit of the technology strategies. How are we doing this? What's the best way to go do it? So first up, proven benefits. I've been in this for 4 years. I've researched this topic. By the way, this tool I built for myself. I'll be upfront. I wanted to break through from remote webinars and presentations. I had technical presentations. I was struggling as a founder CEO out there doing the exact same thing. I knew that people were falling asleep on the other side, especially during COVID. And I started experimenting with different tools. I went out there, got OBS Studio, I got Ecamm, I got this, I got, you name it, I have it. Cameo this and, multi-presenter that. They all had various limitations. They couldn't do what I wanted to do. So I started building it myself. So that's kind of my origin story. And what happened is that I started using it. More people came back and said, how did you do this? I got a webinar tomorrow. Can I do this myself? And, I pointed it out, go download OBS Studio and then get multi-presenter this and get the Logitech that. And this was ridiculously complicated. And I decided that I'll start doing this and create some software around it in order to help people out. So far, over the last 3-4 years, thousands and thousands of customer surveys, 200% increase in engagement. And how did we measure that? It's a nice number. So we have companies like Crestcom that use it for leadership training and other companies that use it for teaching courses. And what they do is 4, 5, 6, OSHA, certification courses for safety and standards, 8 hours. So they do 4 hours with Reactiv, 4 hours without this app. And you know what? 3 to 4 out of 10 goes to 7 to 9 out of 10, like instantly. 60% better test scores and memory retention. So we've got a lot of data that shows that classrooms, and I'm going to show you some of the case studies, continuing education who are actually using the product are coming back with significant amount of memory retention on technical topics compared to normal Zoom presentations. So far, over thousands of users, over 90% speaker and presenter satisfaction. If something doesn't work to their satisfactions, we instantly know about it. Like our users are passionate. And you know what? You're going to tell me today if you have less Zoom fatigue because of this product. As you know, 80% of all stats are made up. So I'm hoping that you agree with all of these. And that's kind of that's kind of where we're at now. The first thing that I want to do is multi-camera view. Okay, people don't realize how important this is. For example, I could actually have a room camera, and I hate this. I hate the idea that me as a presenter do not have control over my camera. Like I could actually have my whole classroom sitting somewhere as a separate camera, and I could be here presenting because I believe that the presenter should be front and center. Because you're the presenter, you came in, and when we have a keynote speaker, I screwed up my camera. I knew I'd do that. When you have a keynote speaker, the keynote speaker goes up to the front of the podium. They're standing up on stage. What's your stage equivalent? Don't tell me you're going to pin the presenter on Zoom or Teams, okay? Like that doesn't work. What happens if they're sharing content? The pinned presenter doesn't, like, there's a lot of problems with the way that pinning actually works. So to me, you've got to leverage dual cameras, and presenters must have their own dedicated camera. However way you figure that out, that increases engagement dramatically. You should have the room, you should have the presenter. There's no ifs and buts about it based on the research. Because at the end of the day, why did you join this webinar? First of all, I could have sent the deck out. You could have just read it. Also, I could have pre-recorded this video and sent it out, but you joined a live webinar. The presenter has to actually motivate and deliver and give you a result for that. And you would all agree, I'm assuming 100% would agree, that if I sent the deck out for you to read, or I just pre-recorded this video and you watched it passively, there would be no engagement, right? Separate room cameras. And by the way, with this particular app, you can bring in as many cameras as you want. There's lots of interesting, cool things that our customers actually do with it. By the way, just note here, background removal, it's horrible. There's actually psychological studies. What happens is everybody puts a white background they're all blurry, their hands are cut off, it's shimmering, their logo's right there. There's this uncanny valley of disbelief that you don't cross, and your brain's actually shut off. Just making sure that you're aware. Record tab cameo option. Yeah, absolutely. Cameo is great, but then I have to change all the slides. I got to put that cameo box somewhere. I've got to put it, in a specific location. What if I want to pull up a video? There's lots of things you cannot do. Next, dedicated audience monitor. So the way that I have it right now, and I am now going to show you, one second. I actually have a dual monitor system, and a lot of people do not do this. I know a lot of Teams rooms already do this, but people don't tend to use this very effectively. So I'm going to cheaply show you that we have full AirPlay and Chromecast capabilities. And I actually have, look at that. I have my main screen here, but I actually have an audience monitor right there. And of course, if Dion was kind enough to share his camera again, you'll actually see that I can see the audience. Now, this is a normal webinar, so I don't see everybody. But normally I'd see everyone, talk to you right there, and interact with people over here, show my content, and I have the ability to really create a dynamic presentation. Now, what this does with the dedicated audience monitor is you create a safe space or a really good space for both in-room and hybrid participants. So the in-room participants can see each other. Like if I have a class right here and I'm going there. So again, coming back to my second camera right here, if I bring up the room camera, I have the ability to be on this camera as an in-room participant, watch each other, and completely interact. That's something that I find most systems are lacking. And people are spending tens of thousands of dollars on boardrooms and presentation systems, and they don't solve these fundamental problems. The next thing is, people are coming up and going, here's a 98-inch, here's a 100-inch, here's a 105, here's a DV-LED. It's great to upsize your display. So what I have here is I've got a media resources system that has interactive touch capability on it, which I'm going to talk about. And just so you're aware, the technology for DV-LED has dropped in price dramatically. Performance has got up. And right now I'm using something called a flip chip GOB coded LED. And what that does is it allows me to interact with this panel. I can write on it, I can touch it, I can tap it, and it works great. So the SMD LEDs are not going to go pop off. And now with 0.9 millimeter DV-LED GOB flip chip coming down in price, actually you can get it into a lot of different locations. You can easily put this into boardrooms, conference centers. I can use multi-monitor systems with flat panels for audience view. There's all sorts of cool things that you can actually do. And in that type of scenario, I'm actually able to engage both remote in-person attendees. Now why? Why is this big screen important? Because there's a lot of times I want to do things like this. So let's just say that I want to bring up, a video right there. Or I might actually say, here's a PDF. So we're doing a marketing analysis, and I want to show you that did this brand change from content to content. This is something that most presenters have difficulty with. I start screen share, I stop screen share, I start it again. It becomes really muddled. It's hard to do window management with your desktop and Windows. So the ability for me to come up and say, okay, let's take a look at that. And by the way, there's also this, and you want to look at that Word document, let me put that up there, and I'll do the cardinal spin and put it on top of myself, which is very annoying and distracting, but for fun. So again, depending on your bandwidth and your resolution and how you're consuming this meeting, you might not read all the text, but that's not the point. The point is, I'm trying to show you in a remote meeting how to leverage large pixel surfaces in order to put up multiple pieces of content in a visual way that'll actually engage, interact, and do all those fun things, right? So that's really critical, and we're seeing a ton of these right now. Again, Media Resources has quite a few. They range from 0.7 all the way through to 1.2, all touchable, interactable, and it can be a game changer if it's used correctly in the right type of environment. And to me, hopefully you'll all agree, broadcast quality meetings. I want you to feel like you stepped into my office, you're in person, etc. Okay, touchscreens. Look, I've been around the block for 15 years in this industry. It really is a sensitive topic. I have 247 CTS certified specialists here. We all have been involved with interactive whiteboards. In the last 1 year, tell me, when has anybody said, I have to use this whiteboard to get my job done? By the way, that doesn't mean you did a demo of a whiteboard to a customer. I'm talking about actually needing it. Because I've been in this space and put it up in chat, because if you use it every single day, somehow constructively, I'd love to talk to you and learn how you're using it. But most whiteboards give you a big touchscreen where you're clicking buttons, and it's like a glorified mouse, right? Never, thank you, right? And zero. So what's happening is, but how many of us have actually sold whiteboards, installed whiteboards, spec'd whiteboards, costed them? And all of us have, right? So having a whiteboard with markers is great though. Yeah, exactly, because whiteboards are not fundamentally fixing the problems that we actually have. And what I discovered is, and by the way, I invented ShadowSense and the touch technology that's actually really unique. And I discovered that I don't have a need for it. So what this does is, if you're looking for quantum ShadowSense, the cool thing about it is it doesn't matter on this DVLED surface. It's like Microsoft Ink. I use my finger and I move the thing. I use the pen, I can interact with it. I have an eraser here, I erase. It's 10 millisecond latency, incredibly fast pen on paper-like experience. And the cool thing with this is it's actually completely modular. So what does that mean? So the touchscreen itself comes in pieces, and those pieces connect together in order to create overall large touchscreen. So you can disassemble it, reconnect it. If you have a 110 inch, you have a 105 inch, it's all field calibrated and programmable. It'll completely change the way that you implement. It'll work with Media Resources, GOB, COB systems. So they're all natively working together. All the sensors just mount on the top. And I'm not going to go into how the touch technology differentiates, but you get finger shape, size recognition, pen on paper type writing experience, ability to ink, together with simplicity of install. So again, a technology that we invented to try and make the solution space a lot better. Now, I want to show you a couple of cool things we've done with the type of stuff that you're seeing here. So you might wonder, okay, where is this useful for? So as an example, this is a company called Safety by Design out in Houston. And they had a problem. They do a lot of OSHA certification training. And in that training, they're having hybrid environments where it's like Schlumberger, oil and gas, construction, and they're doing safety certification training. So here's an example of a training that we ended up doing. This is CPR training. And what you have is you have a camera that is a close-up of the CPR dummy, so you can see what the instructor is doing. At the same time, you actually have the room camera, and you can clearly see how everything is doing. And of course, I can always put in PowerPoint presentations and all sorts of things like that, right? So safety, training, and development. This is really, really big. We have a lot of network operation centers. So this is actually at Disney. And what Disney is using it for at Epcot Center for their incident response team is they've actually got Reactiv in a network operations center where they have a small touchscreen, and it's actually controlling content on all of these monitors. So common example, I have 4 different videos. I want to mark up these videos based on an incident, but I also want to have an engaging meeting so people can actually understand. So I have 4 different videos. And here's a cool thing that we can do. We can take this touchscreen and I can take the content and I literally throw it and it'll actually pop up on that screen. So based on gestures, we can do multi-monitor control and throw it again, and the whole thing actually removes. So, and if you throw it in different directions, it'll actually pop up here. And if I throw it in this direction, it'll actually pop up on the other screen. So if you've got a network operations center where you actually have to go ahead and take content and put it up on multiple monitors, it dramatically improves user experience on how to go ahead and control that. And we've got a lot of higher education where you can imagine teachers using it. We've got sales training coaches, Sandler Institute, people like Dale Carnegie, Crestcom, leadership training. We've got all sorts of customers actually using it from a remote and a hybrid presentations. And that's kind of the opportunities that we're really looking at. We're looking to transform audio video installations in a wide spectrum of different industries. So people who care about presentations, who care about engagement, who care about that long-term value from that presentation, we have a high impact solution. So I wanted to pause here for a second and start asking questions. Minority Report, absolutely. We actually also, I love CSI, I love Iron Man, where all the data comes up. And I grew up watching all these things going, how do I use this in a meeting? How do I make this be simple? So this is something that is very close to my heart. Now, this whole thing, by the way, is just an app running on Windows. It's really simple. All I did was click that share screen button and shared my content. That's it. So I'm not going to get into the technical details of hookup. I have a second webinar coming up on June, which I'm going to talk about boardrooms versus home office versus large display walls. And I'm going to get into the technical details of how things are connected together, how you should do camera management, how you should do, there's a lot of things that I cannot connect, but I would love to hear some feedback. And by the way, this product, we're constantly learning. Just by the feedback of even the cursors, maybe we should have an option that the cursors are removed. There's all sorts of things that I get from talking to people. So feel free to criticize because I only know a small percentage of the problem. Everything here has been developed by user feedback. I'd love to go get some questions from the team or from everybody here for the last 10 minutes. Anything on the chat there, Dion, that I'm not paying attention to?
No, but there are a couple of questions in the Q&A.
Awesome. Can you read them out to me? I don't think I see the Q&A. And Sue, great to see you. It's been a long time.
Not a problem. Matt Panev, what software do you use for adding the phone and slides and more to the Zoom feed?
I'm actually Reactiv natively brings in AirPlay, Chromecast. By the way, so the way that it works is in Reactiv, this is the app that you're seeing right now. We're bringing in, give it a second, there we go. The phone comes in, and I'm actually using native Apple TV screen mirroring. There's no app, there's no third-party tool I have to install. So not only can I do that, I can actually bring in Miracast. So here you go. Here's my laptop right here. And my laptop is right there, together with my phone. I'm gonna now mess up my entire visual here, but you get the idea. So I have the ability to bring in any type of device wirelessly into Reactiv and interact. So there's really this tool gives you everything that you need in one package. And that's one of the reasons I developed it. I couldn't find anything like that. Hopefully I answered that question.
Okay, next up, we got Bill Knight. Most remote presenters at our large academic organizations barely know how to screen share on their laptops, let alone other standard tools in Zoom or Teams. It seems they can't be bothered. How could they be more motivated to learn more engagement tools?
Fair enough. So I just wanted to share a personal story. This is an institute called TechSoup. This is in a place not even called, not Lima, it's in Peru, it's in Arequipa. And they have 180 classrooms signed up with Reactiv. And what they did was, nobody there even speaks English. Our entire deal was done on Google Translate. So I take every WhatsApp message and every email message, put it into Google Translate and give it back. And that's how I've been training them. Now, their motivation was, oh my God, our kids and our students, it's a continuing education college where a lot of times teachers are teaching to a hybrid class because parents are sick or you've got a work commitment and you're joining in. And they really felt passionate about the work that they do. And they started doing a lot of research. And when they implemented Reactiv, it was a game changer. So the way that I do my onboarding is I find a pain point, because if you come in and say, click share on a PowerPoint, the reason that they're not doing it is because subconsciously they know it's a horrible experience and nobody's paying attention. They themselves are falling asleep. So once I go through an onboarding and I do a proof of concept, you're actually going to see how teachers' eyes light up, because this actually fits into the way educators are educated. Like, as in, you got to write, you got to engage, you got to be nonlinear. They're masters and skilled at reinforcement learning and associative learning. They don't realize it, it's just innate. So all you can do is show them the tool and get buy-in.
Okay, Jermaine Walker wants to know, can this be integrated with existing meeting conference rooms?
Absolutely. Right now on a Zoom webinar, and I could be on Teams, it could be on WebEx, you click the screen share button and you pick the window, and what we do is we help you select the right pieces of hardware to actually pump it up. And you might want a touchscreen here, you might want a tabletop there, you might want an extra camera there, but the intention is you do not change your platform, do not change your tools. Because there's a lot of tools that go, don't use PowerPoint, don't use this, don't use that, use Beautify, use that. Hey, no marketing company is going to come in and no IT company is going to sanction something completely different. We are a Teams and Zoom and WebEx native workflow. We work on just a Windows PC with your image, all of your security features. It works with SharePoint, OneDrive, and it brings in PowerPoint and videos and Word documents and everything natively. So you'll see how easy it is.
An appropriate time for the next question is from anonymous attendee. Does it work with Apple products?
Right now, the app, I'll be honest, I'm a Windows developer. So when I started creating the app and I had the vision for it, my whole team was Windows. But we are working on a full Mac version of it. But I'll be honest, we only have about 10% of people coming in going, I want to install on a Mac. But it does offer full AirPlay, Chromecast, and all the connectivity. So your iPads, your everything can actually come in. There's no issue with it. It's just we're a Windows platform.
All right, next question from Wolf is actually for me. Will the video or slides be available? I want to show them to the board. The recording will be available on the Avixa website in about a week, maybe less. It just depends on how quickly we can get it uploaded.
Absolutely. And then I'm happy to share the presentation to everyone. And by the way, Infocom, we're booth 2854. You get to kick the tires, use it for yourself, and we'll have cameras set up and you can bring a USB key with your PowerPoint presentation. You know what? I'll show you within 2 minutes. If you're not up and running and using it comfortably, I'm going to buy you an ice cream because we're trying to get ice cream at the booth. So, well, I lied. I would have given you ice cream anyway. But it sounds better when I say I'm going to buy you one.
Is this Zoom only? From Jonathan.
No. Zoom. Oh, actually, Doug, I forgot about the MRI booth number. Can you please tell me the media resources booth number, please? I should have put this down on here. My fail. I'm just going to write this down right now because remember what I said? When I write something, you'll remember. So at MRI, booth number, Doug Price, if you can put that in chat. Okay, so again, we are just an app that you click the share screen button and you pick this. So it'll work with Zoom. It works with every third-party video conferencing tool. Doug, okay, I'll have to make this fix. So we need there is a media resources also. Again, if you come back to that logo before, I will share that in the email that goes out as to all the booths that you can actually find us in.
Okay, next question from an anonymous attendee. Is your name and title on the bottom left of the screen originating from Reactiv?
Yes, sir. So what I have there is if I go to, sorry, wrong tablet right here. If I click on my settings window, my camera, I have something called an overlay, and I actually have the ability to go ahead and change all that. I can pick all sorts of camera angles, zoom in, zoom out, control my camera. do a whole bunch of things that allow me to come in. Yes, so we have full badge handling. We can put in multiple badges, so as the users are changing, they can pick a different badge. So I can actually have it set up for 10 different users. Anybody can come into the room, have their badge up. So lots of cool things I can do. Great question, Mark. Mayor, how to differentiate between monetary annotations and annotations that disappear? So two ways. One is I click the toolbar and I pick pen. That's the pen. I click the toolbar again. I pick highlighter, and I can also pick momentary thing that actually disappears because, as someone of you pointed out, it's distracting when it's actually written. Now, I'm lazy. I don't like pushing buttons, so I am going Alt-1 gives me a pen. Alt-2 gives me a highlighter, and Alt-3 on my wireless keyboard here gives me a ink back. So I do like keyboard shortcuts because I'm on my desk all the time, but you have multiple ways of actually switching, and that's how I do it.
From David.
Booth number 751. So let's write that down in a permanent pen so everybody will remember. 751 is MRI. So those are the two booths that you're going to actually see an awesome Reactiv demo to kick the tires. MRI will have the full video wall with the touchscreen. We'll also have an MRI video wall with the touchscreen, so you get to see different room configurations.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Next one. Yeah, we've got a few more. From David, how would you display a remote presenter in a large room with an audience?
Yeah. Okay. So two ways to do that. My simplest way is I can actually have the Teams or Zoom camera be the audience view. So they're part of the Brady Bunch, like that's your whole room over here. That's one way. The other way that a lot of our clients do this is they use multi-camera. So I bring in the room camera and I put that room camera over here. Now, you might argue the deck is even smaller, Av. Can you read everything? Now, that's a valid concern. And there's many ways that we can actually change this. I can actually put that over here based on what the camera angles are, and I can move my own camera over so that it is within view if I have a remote control. So there's a lot of ways that you can configure this, but remember, you do not need a huge amount of space for your audience. Now, sometimes we have dual cameras. So, like for example, I have a town hall, and I have a camera on the presenter, and then I also have a camera on the question. Somebody is walking up to the stage and asking a question. So I'm going to show that to you right now. We did this for Dell, and they actually had a meeting where they have an auditorium, and what they have on the auditorium is you have this on a little podium, and you've got Reactiv on the huge screen being mirrored, and then they have multiple cameras. So anybody who comes up to speak can automatically switch to that camera, or they can overlay that camera. So you've got the presenter plus the speaker plus the audience plus the deck. There's many ways you can mix things up, but of course you're limited by screen real estate.
Okay.
Next question.
Yeah, we got a time for a couple more. If Aaron wants to know, how does this app consume, or does this app consume a lot of computing processing resources? Do you find yourself having to suggest computer upgrades or hardware upgrades to your clients, and often?
No, I mean, so first of all, if you do buy a RTX 4090 or something like that, like a cool video card, send that to me, and I'll give you a reasonable video card that'll actually work. Video walls, hey, you know what? Spend a $600 RTX 3070 whatnot because you have a large pixel surface. But most of our clients are using Reactiv on their laptops. So we've got no issues with this. Is just a normal ThinkPad right there. And I run Reactiv on a small touchscreen. And this is again in June. We're going to go ahead and show you how we can do different combinations. But and right now, Reactiv is actually being rewritten in a language, in a platform called Unity. I don't know if anybody knows what Unity is. Unity is a video gaming language, so it's incredibly efficient on resources, but it is designed to run on your normal laptop, nothing special. We do ask for 16 gigs of RAM because Teams alone can take up 8 with Windows. So if you have 8 gigs of RAM, then you're hitting the swap file. From a technical point of view, 16 gigs of RAM and a more modern processor. Yes, if you're coming to me with Windows 95, I'm going to have a tough time.
Okay, let's take one more. Next question is from Prosper. He wants to know, has your system been accredited within information assurance within the Department of Defense?
Yes, we have. We've got systems in Guam, and we've got systems in Hawaii that they're doing classified information because Reactiv has no cloud. There's no data conference transfer. There's no movement. There's no storage. We keep everything local, and you don't even need the internet. It's a local install. So it's in every way defense and certification. So I've gone through all of those paperworks where they ask about all the packets and all the ports that you're opening, and everything is a no, no, no. And we've gone through with flying colors. And we've also been implemented in financial institutions, HIPAA compliant locations. Again, we do not move, copy, or transfer or host your data. We use your OneDrive, your SharePoint. You want Defense Cloud, Azure. You want to use your own version of Zoom that's a guaranteed video conference with a US server. It doesn't matter to us.
Okay, we are unfortunately out of time. So I just want to thank you and thank all of our attendees for joining us on today's webinar. Everyone hates remote presentations. Let's fix them. This recording will be available on the Avixa website, and that website is avixa.org/webinars within about 5 to 7 business days, and your half of renewal unit will be applied to your transcripts within those 7 business days. If you have any trouble with this, please contact Avixa's webinar team directly at webinars@avixa.org. And a side note for CTS holders, if you register for the webinar with an email address other than the one on file for you, you won't get credit for attending. It can be fixed. Please email membership@avixa.org and let your account rep know that you used the wrong email address, and we will get it fixed for you on the back end. I want to take the time out to thank Av again, and thank you to Vizetto, and a huge thank you to everyone who attended with us. We hope you've enjoyed our presentation, and please don't forget to join us on the Avixa Exchange. It's an AV provider directory and community where you can grow your network, stay updated on industry trends. We hope you've enjoyed our presentation. Thank you again, Ab, and make it a great day, everybody.